Hello, good afternoon. I'm Jimmy Yong from Kitson Migration. Thanks for joining us today on Kitson Migration Facebook Live. For those who are first time with us today, do like our page for all our futures update. Today with us, we have three distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Phillip Grifoni from South Australia Immigration. We have Mr. Darren Dougan, founder and CEO of Home Nursing Services. Last but not least, we have Dato Michael Yong, the founder and managing director of Kitson Migration Advisory. And along with Dato is his assistant, Ms. Kay. All three of our speakers today will be sharing a topic on South Australia migration via the healthcare pathway. Today, they will be sharing to you on the Visa Subclass 132 requirement and how do we actually use the healthcare business to fulfill all the requirement required for this visa. So we will start off with the presentation from Mr. Phillip Grifoni on the visa requirement. After that will be followed by Mr. Darren. After that will be by Dato Michael. Upon all the three presentations, we will open up the floor for Q&A. If you have any question, please do type on the comment section on the Facebook Live. Phillip, I'll pass the floor to you.
Okay, I'll just share the screen now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Phillip Grifoni, and I'm the Manager of Business Migration for the South Australian State Government. Firstly, thank you very much to Dato, Michael Yong, and Kitson Migration Advisory for inviting us here this afternoon. Kitson have been a very big supporter of South Australia's business program over a very long period of time, and we're very appreciative for their support. On the map of Australia, the yellow and the orange part of that map there, that's South Australia. So that's where I'm from. The capital of South Australia is Adelaide. Today's presentation is going to cover a number of different topics. It's going to cover what is business migration. It's going to cover which visa may be right for you, some background information on South Australia, and then also explaining how we support clients, how do we engage, and how do we promote our program. So essentially, business migration is an Australian federal government migration program. It's been going for more than 20 years in Australia, and South Australia has always participated. It's introduced many successful business people to the state. We would regard it as very, very important to the South Australian state government, and Australia really competes against many other countries in the world for the same sort of level of client. There's two different levels of government in Australia that have involvement with the application process. You've got the state government, which is who I work for. So we're in charge of the nomination. So if the client gets the business visa, what will they actually do in the state in terms of type of business? And then you've got the Australian federal government, which is in charge of all visas for Australia. So some states, every state in Australia participates in the business program. However, some states get many applications and some states don't get many applications at all. So fortunately, now South Australia receives many applications, and we're very appreciative to all of the agencies who are able to support us. The first visa that I'll speak about today is a 188 visa. There is five different streams, but we'll concentrate on three streams today. So it's 188A, 188B, and 188C. So the requirements that are on the screen in front of you are the Australian federal government requirements to get the business visa in the first place. The 188 visa is a provisional or temporary visa. It's granted for 4 years, and it requires the visa holder, once it's granted, to meet certain state and federal requirements and then apply for permanent residency through 888A, 888B, or 888C. So there are many differences between the visas that are there. So with 188A, it requires the client to actively manage a business in Australia, meet state and federal requirements, and then apply for permanent residency. 188B and 188C are very passive investment visas. For example, 188B invests in state government bonds and is not required to do business. Of course, there's other requirements and conditions, but that's a major difference between the 188A. The 188C, once again, they're required to invest $5 million into a complying investment fund, but not required to do day-to-day business. So once the client has met the state and the federal requirements, they will be eligible to apply for permanent residency following that. And South Australia gets applications for 188A, B, and C. There's no state government preference for the type of application that we receive. And certainly over the last 8 years, we've received many, many applications for all of the different streams that you can see on the screen in front of you. The next visa I'll speak about is called the 132 Business Talent Visa. So with the 132 visa, there are two different streams, 132A and 132B. We'll concentrate on 132A today. So the requirements that are on the screen are once again the Australian federal government requirements on the applicant to get the visa in the first place. This is a straight to permanent residency business visa. It's also the highest level business visa for Australia. South Australia is the #1 state for 132 in terms of numbers, applications, and visa grants. Over the last 4.5 to 5 years, South Australia has received at least 55% of all of the applications for the 132A visa have applied to South Australia. Because this is a straight to permanent residency business visa, the client is required to run a business at a high level over the first 2 years of the visa grant. They need to manage this business with documentation, evidence, decision-making, and management. They need to also pass a state and a federal 2-year review after the first 2 years of business. South Australia meets with all of its 132 visa holders every 6 months over the first 2 years. So that means we can become very familiar with the type of business the clients are doing, and then also build relationships with clients to fully understand the contribution that they're making to South Australia. Because this is a straight to permanent residency business visa, if you're interested in applying for the 132A or 188A visa, there is still a requirement that the client has visited South Australia previously. So the evidence that we would accept as proof of a visit would include a boarding pass of your trip to Adelaide, transactions under your credit card that you've made whilst you're in Adelaide, or it could also include a copy of your hotel accommodation whilst you're in Adelaide. Now, you could have visited 4 months ago, 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. If you've got that evidence, then we'll consider it. However, if you didn't have any evidence or you had not visited before, then we would suggest speaking to Kitson Migration, who, once the travel restrictions to Australia are lifted, may be able to assist you in organising a visit so that you can come and satisfy that particular requirement as well. So I can say over the last 20 years, every South Australian client for 132 that's achieved at least the minimum state requirement or higher has always passed the state and federal review. So in terms of the types of business that you could do on a 132 visa in South Australia, or if you're under 55 years of age or over 55 years of age, will determine the level in terms of dollar figure, investment, export, or full-time employment that you would need to meet. Essentially, if you are under 55 years of age at the time that you apply for state nomination, you will have a choice. And the choice will be as follows. You would invest into a business, and that business would employ at least 4 full-time employees. Of course, you'd need to manage this business with documentation and evidence over the 2 years, but 4 full-time equivalent employees over 1 year would be enough to satisfy that particular requirement. Now, if you didn't want to employ, then you would have another choice. You could export a minimum of 600,000 Australian dollars in South Australian goods or services, so products generally. That would be purchase price, and they would be exported regularly over the 2 years, and you as the business owner, you will be in charge of sourcing all the products in South Australia and arranging their export overseas, and then arranging their sale overseas as well. So you can export those to any particular market that you want, provided it's not to another Australian state. Generally speaking, the $600,000 is a minimum. If you wanted to go $600,000 of all non-wine, then you wouldn't need to do any further export after that. If you wanted to do 50% of the 600,000 in wine and 50% of the 600,000 in non-wine, then you could still do 600,000. The higher percentage of wine that you go, above 50%, is the higher the dollar figure needs to be. And all of our requirements are published on our website. They're black and white, they're transparent. So there's no new rule or new requirement after you apply for state nomination. Now, of course, the other option is that if you chose to invest in a new or existing business in South Australia, then the minimum figure would be $1.5 million. And of course, for the property development, you can invest $1.5 million into a property development in South Australia. Now, once again, if you're 55 years of age and over, essentially all of the requirements that I mentioned just then, they essentially double. And Kitson Migration have had clients that are under 55 years of age and 55 years of age and over. And I'm sure Michael won't mind me saying, he's had clients that have employed, he's had clients that have invested, he's had clients that have exported. So they'll be able to advise you about which one might be more suitable for you. And certainly we've known Darren for a long period of time as well. And so based on the conversations and the information that Darren's provided to me, he's got an exciting proposal that based on the documentation that we saw, may be able to be considered for clients to do it in the future as well. So I'm aware that it's running successfully interstate and would be very, very interested to follow its progress in South Australia as well. So over the last 20 years, clients, of course, they've exported, they've invested, and they've employed. So there's no state government preference for the type of business activity that you do. We want to keep it as flexible as possible. We haven't restricted the type of business that clients have done. So some other states may say yes to this, no to that. We've kept it fairly open because we want to leave as much choice for the client as possible. So there's many benefits by South Australia running this particular program. So of course we'll get the export, the investment, or the employment. But we've found by this program running over 20 years, we've found a lot of post-permanent residency review or permanent residency additional investment separate to the program, just because clients want to do something separate to the actual migration. There's many more people visiting South Australia and looking at it as a destination to do business. Certainly the service sector in South Australia is much bigger in terms of catering for business clients than it was 5 or 10 years ago. And many large projects have been commenced or completed as a result of clients doing business in South Australia. And we certainly hope that continues. So South Australia is quite large in terms of size of land, but a little bit smaller than some other states in terms of size of population. It has 8 different regions in South Australia. All of those regions produce different products, have different climates, and have different industries. The capital of South Australia is Adelaide. And certainly, like I mentioned before, if you'd like to arrange a visit to come and see us in South Australia, then you can include spouse and dependent children on the visitor visa application. But I'm aware that Malaysians may be able to travel with other visas as well to Australia. So certainly speak to Kitson about that if you're interested in applying for South Australian state nomination in the future. With real estate in South Australia, there's obviously a lot of different choice available for business clients to purchase, from houses to townhouses to apartments in the city or in close suburbs to the city. Generally speaking, the price is 40 to 50% cheaper than Melbourne and Sydney, or more competitive, let's say. And if I had to say and describe South Australia in a few words, it's a clean, green and safe business environment with good business opportunities. And that photo there hasn't been photoshopped at all. So that's actually what happened with the visa. So over the 20 years of the South Australian Business Migration Program, of course, many clients have invested into a wide variety of different industries, from agriculture and farming to wineries, education, of course, property development, newer style investments into big solar farms, and recently over the last 3 or 4 years, large-scale major investments into port infrastructure as well. So all of these clients were introduced to South Australia by the South Australian Business Migration Program. We're very thankful that we have such a program that allows us to speak and get the benefit of successful business coming to the state. In terms of exporting options, South Australia has a variety of large-scale industries in terms of meat and seafood, of course, to honey and olive oil, vegetables and fruits, nuts, grains, oats, etc., and many other industries as well. And many clients have successfully exported all of these products previously for migration requirements or separate to migration requirements as well. But if one of the larger industries in South Australia is the red wine industry. So South Australia produces 53% of all of Australia's red wine and also produces 80% of all of Australia's premium red wine. It happens to be the home of Penfolds, of course, and many clients have successfully exported Penfolds to meet migration requirements, but then they've successfully exported hundreds of other different types of brands and brands of South Australian wines as well. So certainly with exporting, there's no government preferred type of product. It's completely your choice about which one you chose to do. With education in South Australia, most of the universities are located in the CBD. 188 and 132 visa holders, children, they can attend local state government school and pay the local fee, provided they either rent a house or buy a house in the school zone, and all of the school zones are different, and Department of Education have got a breakdown of a map of define all of the school zones in South Australia for the local government schools. Now for private school, they don't have a requirement to buy a house or rent a house in the school zone. Their requirement would be to pay the fee, and all of the fees for the private schools are different depending on the school. Now with the university, 132 visa holders and their children, they can attend university in South Australia and pay local fee. However, with the 188 visa holder, they and their children, they have to pay the international fee until they achieve permanent residency. Now, in South Australia, the client isn't just a number, they're not just a file. We know all of our clients, we know the types of businesses that they're doing. So the state government, because they regard this program as so important, we put a lot of resources and a lot of time, effort and money into showcasing investment opportunities in different regions of South Australia, from the Limestone Coast to the Riverland to Kangaroo Island, etc. in the past. We generally do this 1 to 2 times a year, normally. We've organised many different trade shows to regional areas of South Australia, from Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, Murray Bridge and Riverland and City, of course, to showcase different South Australian producers and the products that they've got for sale. But this is just an example about the different types of trade shows that we've done over the last couple of years. Of course, we promote our program heavily in our key markets. One of those key markets is Malaysia, another one is China and Vietnam. So they're the top 3 source countries in terms of numbers of applications of clients to South Australia. And there's a wide range of government support that's available for clients and certain agents as well. So once again, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to Dato, Michael, Yong and Kitson for being able to present this afternoon, and very appreciative that you'll be able to join us for the presentation, and certainly look forward to receiving any questions I might receive a little bit later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip, for the explanation on all the visa requirement. This will actually clear out quite a lot of queries that most of the applicants have in their mind about the 132 visas via South Australia. So now we will pass the floor to Darren to further explain about how you can achieve the 132 requirement via healthcare business. Darren, as I mentioned earlier, is the founder and the CEO of Home Nursing Services. Darren?
Thanks, Jimmy. And yes, thank you very much, Michael and Kitson's, for hosting me today. And also thanks very much, Phillip, for your support. And yeah, we have known each other for a little while, so just acknowledge that and thanks for your support and appreciate that. I don't have any slides to talk through, but I just wanted to say sort of three things. First of all, just a little bit about H&S, Home Nurse Services, and what we do. The second thing, just about 132 visa and our experience in other states with 132 visas. And then the third point I'd like to raise is just about the South Australian opportunity that we think we have with potential 132s. So they're the three things I just want to cover off today. So first, just a little bit about Home Nurse Services, H&S. We're a national company. I'm based in Sydney, but we have offices around the country. We employ nurse practitioners and doctors, GPs. And we operate into aged care homes across the country, both in metropolitan areas and also in regional areas. In the aged care sector in Australia, it's a little different from, I believe, in Malaysia. But in aged care in Australia, there's around 200,000 residents living in aged care across the country. And these people are typically in their early to mid 80s. And they're requiring significant care, given that they can't access that care at home. So it's a residential aged care industry. It's a significant industry in Australia. And those people in residential care are looked after by carers in the residential facility, but also they have visiting healthcare professionals to come and attend to them, being doctors, external nurse practitioners, allied health, physiotherapists and the like. So we provide doctors and nurses into these residential aged care homes, and our doctors and nurses, our nurse practitioners especially, are very highly skilled and practitioners. So they're not general domestic caring nurses. The GPs and the NPs we employ are very high end. They can write scripts, diagnose, treat, and provide 100% of the medical care required of residential aged care residents. So we're a high-end professional services firm providing healthcare solutions to aged care. We are 5 years old, and as I said, I'm based in Sydney, but we're across the country, except we happen not to be in South Australia. It's the one state we haven't quite got to yet. And so that's why I'm excited by the opportunity of actually working with South Australian government and also potential 132 investors to establish our business in Adelaide and also regional South Australia. As an example, regionally, we find quite a demand for our service because in regional areas, there is a shortage of GPs, doctors typically. And so we have quite a large business in regional New South Wales and also regional Queensland, where we can find our nurse practitioners can really add value into residential aged care facilities that doctors may not be attending. We're also very shortly bring on geriatricians into our business as well, and that's they're a more specialist aged care doctor, a geriatrician, to provide a full holistic care for our residents. Since COVID-19, our business has actually grown, and some of the innovations here in Australia around telehealth and telemedicine have driven that growth, and that's quite an exciting opportunity for us in a post-COVID world to improve our residents' care with our doctors and our nurse practitioners. So that's our business. Where I said we're a growing business, and we're focusing on providing that care to residents. So the second point, just on our 132 experience, and especially our partnership with Kitson's, we've at the moment have 132 investors in Western Australia and in New South Wales, and that's been very successful for us. And I think working with Kitson's and working with the respective state governments, everyone's quite excited and supportive of the healthcare track for a 132 visa. As Phillip mentioned around the different tracks available, what we are looking at is the employment track. And I find that that's sort of a lower investment opportunity for 132 applicants. But it is really about growing our business with you and also working with you and leveraging some of your skills in your business business endeavours in Malaysia and Australia. And so we're confident that based on establishing our businesses in South Australia, we can grow our business very quickly and employ quite a number of nurse practitioners and doctors in South Australia, which will satisfy the requirements of the 132. And that brings me to my third point, being the South Australian opportunity. As mentioned, we aren't operating in Adelaide or regional South Australia at the moment. We're very keen to do that. And so our 132 opportunity, we entered WA, Western Australia, through the 132. That was the reason we went to WA, and that's been very successful with Michael and Kitson's. And so we'd like to look at doing the same in Adelaide and regional South Australia. So that's the reason for me being on the call today, is to just to offer a bit of information around our company, around our business, and to understand whether there might be some interest from potential 132 investors to partner with us to build a healthcare business in South Australia. So I think that's, Jimmy, probably all I had to say. So I'd welcome any questions or anything later in the presentation.
Thanks, Darren, for the explanations. There are actually quite a few questions, but I will direct the question to you after the presentation by Dato. So, Dato, will you care to take over the floor and give us more detail about the visa requirement?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jimmy. Firstly, I just want to thank you, Grifoni from the Department of Immigration, South Australia, for being our guest speaker today and to share with you the pathway of business and investor visa via South Australia. And obviously, a big thank you for Darren. I've been working with Darren for the last 7 years, when way back in Canberra. Yeah, we have a good experience having 132 clients in Canberra, and then when Darren branched from property development into healthcare, we have a few clients in Western Australia have good experience using the home nursing model. Out of the 3 clients, 2 of the clients has already passed their 132 review, which is a good news, so they can keep their PR for good, and their business is still running. And even my own brother-in-law has taken up one of the home nursing in New South Wales, and he's doing quite well in Sydney, but the particular business is in the regional area. And from last year, end of last year, he branched into dental healthcare, so he actually expanded the business from home nursing into dental healthcare. So a quick introduction about home nursing. For a migrant to move to Australia, obviously healthcare is one of the reasons that motivate us to migrate. And I myself has been in and out for Australia very regularly, and I can see that the healthcare is always an essential business. It's an ever-growing business. So as what Darren said, the COVID-19 comes in, a lot of industry are badly affected. Some hotels, especially the tourism, are badly affected. But for the healthcare, it's still going on. And the government have introduced the we call it telemedic, right? Is it, Darren? You call it telemedic? Yeah, all right. So telemedic, and then the home nursing can still continue to do the billing and to do the bulk billing. So a little bit for those who don't understand how the healthcare system works in Australia. So in general, as a permanent resident, we are basically covered under the Medicare. So if Darren, nurse practitioner or the GP were to visit one of the retiree or one of the patient, so a big part of the bill is actually paid by the Australian government. So that's where home nursing has the bulk billing authority, and then they bill it to the government. And most of the patients, because if they are senior or they are retired, we basically come out of pocket with maybe 0 or just a small fee. Right, so let me introduce my colleague Kay. She's been sitting there quietly. She will help me to translate 4 slides, which I'm talking about the 132 requirement, and also I'll talk about how home nursing can actually comes in. So Kay will translate in Mandarin, and after this presentation, it'll be Q&A, and we look forward that we can be able to keep in touch with you, to be able to, those who are keen, who want to know more about how the home nursing model works, we can always arrange a private Zoom meeting between yourself, Kitson, and with Darren, right? and then we can go through all the micro detail and the investment amount and how does the whole program work. So let me just share my screen. Right, I will just share my screen on a PowerPoint, right? So as right, so as Philip has run through the multiple type of visa over 188 and 132, some of you are a bit new to all the numbers. So just a quick one for you to understand is, so 188 is a provisional visa and 132 is a permanent visa. So 132 is the best of all the business visa, where once you got the visa approved, if it's a permanent resident straight away. Yeah? So with that visa approved, so the day when we apply the application of the visa, so how does the flow is that the first stage is that my team will meet up with you to qualify you, which the next slide will tell you what is the requirement. And then the next part is that we will discuss with you about the business that you're going to do in Australia. So because of our relationship with the South Australia government, and we have quite a very good experience group of business clients have already moved to South Australia, and our numbers has been growing. So since 3 years ago, we actually opened up a branch in Adelaide, where we have 2 of our local Malaysian staff there to support our client. So once you qualify for this visa, we will invite you to come to South Australia. And when you're in South Australia, we'll be there meeting you. Most of the time, I'll be there personally. If the timing is not right, my colleague will be there, either Timothy or Moon. They are all Malaysians. So we will be there to show you some business opportunity and what are the business that you can think of investment. So similarly, if you want to know more about home nursing, we are happy to discuss with Darren, and if time permits, we can actually catch up with Darren, either in Adelaide or even at his Sydney office. So what is the benefit of an Australia permanent resident? Now, once the visa is granted to you, you will be able to work and live in Australia indefinitely. So that includes your family member, your spouse, and dependent children. So children under the age of 23. So the other opportunity is that your children will have all the study right and obviously work right. They'll be able to enjoy the local fee, as what Philip has shared to you earlier on. And for medical, you can enroll for the Medicare benefit, where a big chunk of the medical cost is actually paid by the government. And if you want to go further, you find that Australia permanent resident and you realize Australia is your home, you can have the opportunity to apply for Australia citizenship. That will require you to have a resident in Australia for at least 4 years. And once you are a permanent resident, there are other visas that you can sponsor your relative over. And once the visa is granted to you, the first round is 5 years permanent resident. And in that 5 years, you can enter and exit Australia as many times as you want. So we call it a multiple visa. I pass it over to Kay to translate in Mandarin.
Okay, thank you, Michael. OK， 今天呢，我们要介绍的签证呢是132的商业英才移民。那么刚刚 Mr. Phillip 呢，他就有解释到，就是132、188当中的一些签证类别。那么今天呢，我们主讲的是132。132跟188之间呢的分别就是在于132呢是属于永久居留签证，就是 PR。那么188呢，它是一个4年签证，4年签证之后呢，当你4年之后，你就可以转888，变成的是澳洲的绿卡，所以过程当中呢，会用的时间就比较长，相对呢要求就会比较低。那么今天呢，我们主要讲的是132。132的这个签证呢，是让一些有经商背景的企业家呢，在澳洲经营全新或者一些现有的生意。那么132为什么今天我们要主讲132呢？那132它的优势都有哪些呢？那么首先呢，因为是澳洲绿卡嘛，永久居留证，那么呢，意思就是你可以无限期的在澳洲工作还有生活，你的孩子或甚至是您呢，都可以享有澳洲的学习机会，尤其是你的孩子他们可以享受澳洲的学习。同时呢，享受澳洲的所有的那些学习费用，就是一些学习费用等等的。那么接下来呢，您跟你孩子呢，全部都可以享有澳洲公费医疗及国营医疗保健计划。OK， 然后除此之外呢，基本上如果你们符合一些居住条规，你们是可以有资格申请澳洲国籍的。 之后呢，当你是 PR 之后呢，你是可以有亲戚担保资格。亲戚担保资格包括父母担保、子女担保，还有就是夫妻担保，这些都有这方面的资格，可以担保你的夫妻、担保你的父母、担保你的孩子。然后最后一个就是在你的签证批准之后呢，5年里面你是可以无限次的出入澳洲，然后到5年之后呢，你就可以申请居民回程签证返回澳洲。Okay, Michael, next slide.
All right, thank you, Kay. So I'll talk about the basic requirement. For you to apply for the 132 permanent resident, the first step is that you have to qualify the threshold. Then we'll invite you to visit South Australia. So once you have visited South Australia and you have determined which business you want to go in, so we will prepare the whole application. So in terms of if you are having a business with home nursing, we will actually use home nursing business plan to submit in the application with the state nomination. We will submit in the expression of interest. Usually the state will take within a month or 2 for the approval. So once you got the approval, the federal government will issue an invitation to apply for the visa, which means in short, we call it ITA. So once you are given the invitation to apply, we have 60 days for us to lodge in the visa. Right? So the criteria for this visa is that if the common criteria is that you must be under 55. If you are over 55, South Australia nomination, South Australia government can actually have age waiver, and there are different conditions for it. So the other one of the fourth requirement is that when you apply for this visa, you must basically have a business plan, as I shared with you, and then and when you are in Australia, you have to maintain a substantial share in the business and to manage the business day to day. Over to you, Kay.
OK 好，谢谢 Michael。OK， 首先呢，如果你要申请132签证呢，它的申请条规呢是比较苛刻的，但是它的申请条件呢是相对来说是简单很多。那么首先呢，你只需要你的提交 EOI， 然后你需要选定一个政府来申请。比如说，如果今天你想要申请维州，那么你就要跟维州政府提交申请。那么如果今天你想要申请南澳，那么你就要去跟南澳的政府提交申请你的提名申请表。然后之后呢，你就会获得政府提名，获得州政府提名之后呢，60天里面呢，你必须要提交你的签证申请表。这类型的签证呢，通常年龄都是不高于55岁，但是呢，也有一些就是年龄上，如果你超过55岁的话呢，除非你获得一些州或者是领地政府的一些拟议，并且有着特殊的经济利益，那么你是可以符合资格申请的。不过通常都是55岁以下。好，然后之后呢，当你申请这个签证的同时呢，你必须要承诺澳洲政府你要建立一个新的业务，或者是你要参与现金的业务，同时你必须要是参与日常管理的。
The qualifying criteria, one of the criteria beside the age of under 55 or over 55, you must have an age waiver, is that you must demonstrate you have net asset, personal and business combined, at least 1.5 million Australian dollar. And in terms of the business ownership, you must be a business owner. If you're not a business owner, you can't apply for this visa. So they will look at your business record for the last 2 years. In the last 4 years, we have to provide at least 2 years of record. So one of the requirements in your business financial statement will be, you must demonstrate that you must have a net business asset of 400,000. And in terms of ownership, if it's a public listed company, you need to own at least 10%. If it's a private limited, it's based on the turnover. So 51% if your turnover is less than 400,000, and 30% if your turnover is more than 400,000. And the other requirement is that your existing business, you can combine up to 2 businesses together. You must have an annual turnover of at least 3 million Australian.
OK， 然后呢，关于生意个人的资产那方面呢，你必须要达到150万澳币。那么你的个人资产呢，可以是您或者您老婆或者是2个人一起的。 那么至于生意那方面呢，在过去4年里面的财政年，那么你至少要有2年的财政年，你的生意是必须要符合，就是生意净资产。首先，生意净资产必须要是最少是要40万以上。那么如果你的生意是上市公司的话呢，那么你就需要握有最少18%的股份。如果然后你的生意的年度营业额呢，必须要高达300万澳币。OK， 那么呢，每一个生意呢，你都要拥有最少的股份权。如果今天你的是上市公司的话呢，你的股份权是18%最少。如果你是那种 private limited company 的话呢，那么你的那个公司的股份权就是如果你的营业额是低于40万的话，你的股份权是要51%以上。如果你的营业额是超过40万的，那么你的股份权是不少于30%。
Okay, that was just a nutshell of the qualifying requirement for you to apply. So once you meet this requirement, the next part is for us to introduce a business opportunity for you, right? So I'm just giving an example under the home nursing program. So in terms of home nursing program, so once you got the visa, you basically will have 2 years to execute your business in South Australia. So just take example, Mount Gambier as one of the locations. So presume that you have met up with Darren in home nursing services, and you guys have decided that let's do a home nursing services in Mount Gambier. So the requirement for the state is just quite simple. You just need to generate 3 full-time employment, at least 3 full-time employment in the last 12 months of the 24 months after the visa grant, right? So which means in terms of this business opportunity that you're going in, the investment dollar amount will just tie with the type of business you're going in. Because when a state nomination comes in for your 132 visa, there are different pathways. One is that you need to invest at least 1.5 million into a business. Another pathway is to create employment. So create employment is one of the ways where you can go in with a slightly lower investment. As what I'm aware from Darren, the investment under home nursing ranges around $500,000 Australian dollar. Is it an amount, Darren?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's quite a low requirement, just $500,000 Australian dollar. And together with Darren, home nursing, you basically will run and manage a particular home nursing services in one region in South Australia. And the employment creation will be there because you need to hire GP and also nurses. Over to you, Kay.
那么132签证呢，当你签证一批准之后呢，申请人是必须要在澳洲进行最少2年的生意，然后呢2年之后呢，必须要通过澳洲移民局的审查。以下呢是其中一个例子。那么132签证呢，当你签证批准之后呢，其实你可以进行不同的生意的。以下的这个例子呢，是当你与澳洲的 home nursing 合作的一些服务。首先呢，如果你今天与澳洲的 home nursing 尤其是在那个 Mount Gambier 合作的话呢，那么你就有机会参与南澳偏远地区的业务，并且你同时是符合州政府的 BTS 的要求。同时呢，这个132的签证呢，你是必须要符合一些条规的。其中一个条规呢，如果你今天是跟那个Home Nurse Service 合作的话呢，那么你只需要符合请雇佣3名职员，只需要在过去24个月当中的12个月雇佣3名全职职员就行了。
All right. Basically, I end my presentation, and feel free to send in all your questions. I'll pass the floor over to Jimmy.
Thanks, Dato, for the clarification on the 132 requirements. So now we are open up the floor for Q&A questions. The first question is from Mr. Lau. Actually, he wished Mr. Grifoni can help him. He said, in your presentation, you did mention that there will be, one of the conditions is to export from South Australia. So if he were to opt for this option, will the state government assist him in getting sort out the produce to be exported out? For instance, either is wines or fresh produce from South Australia.
It will be completely his choice about what he wanted to export and where he wanted to export it to. I mean, many of Michael's previous clients have exported successfully. So I'm sure that Kitson can advise about what's been more popular, easy to sell in the Malaysian marketplace, and what's worked and what hasn't worked. And the last as well.
Philip, no, Mr. Lau actually know what he want to export, but he not sure where to source for the goods in Australia. So would the state government assist in this aspect?
So we don't get involved in a case-by-case basis. Of course, there's a lot of information available online. There's a website that was during my presentation as well as a starting point. But I would say that Kitson's clients over the years have exported a wide variety of different South Australian products. And it really comes down to what the client's looking for, the volume that they're wanting, and the price they're willing to pay as well. But I'm sure Kitson will be able to assist in providing even more information. We've got 3 or 4 different websites we can suggest, but they're not endorsed and they're not government websites. So really, it's going to come down to the client being in South Australia and probably taking those meetings with the suppliers and seeing which ones that he believes he can do business with.
Thanks, Philip, for the clarification.
Jimmy,
yes.
Jimmy, before you go on, I just want to share with you for Mr. Lau. I just share with you a photo about what Kitson can assist you and with the support of the government. So this is actually from our Facebook. It's actually a horticulture event where it's a buyer mission. So the Immigration South Australia, including the federal government, Australia, they do conduct, we call it buying mission in South Australia. So this is one of the mission that myself is involved and a few of our clients who are in horticulture business. We basically, this is organized by Adil, which is he's based in the Australia High Commission in KL, and he also represents South Australia. So we actually visited quite a few farms in South Australia. So let me just unshare the screen. Jimmy, can you unshare? Okay. All right. Over back to Jimmy. Yeah.
Thanks, Dato, for sharing the slide. It's looked very interesting that you actually visit a food packing plants or something. I saw.
Yeah. Some oranges, some cherry. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is actually from Mr. Keith. It was about the home nursing services. He said, Mr. Darren, do I have to be medically trained or medically inclined to actually involve in managing the business?
Well, that's a good question. No. So I'm not medically trained. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. So I think as general manager and management, no, you don't need to be clinical. So we have a number of functions within the company which are not clinical. Certainly from promotion, business development and the like is not really dependent on clinical. So no is the answer to that. I think ultimately, from a healthcare point of view, clearly it affects everyone. So everyone has an interest in healthcare and an interest in healthcare, and certainly in aged care. I think it's and what happened with our partners in Perth in Western Australia, our 132 investors very quickly got up to speed with the business and how it operates in Australia, and it was very, very useful actually. And a lot of the business principles that apply in any business apply in healthcare as well. So I was able to leverage some experience from some of the 132 investors in their businesses in Malaysia around some recruitment and hiring and some management techniques, which were quite helpful, which applied for our business.
Thank you very much for the clarification, Darren. The next one is from Mr. Mui. Dato, I hope you can help Mr. Mui here. I hope I can get your name right. He said this is a bit off topic, but he is interested into migrating into Australia. He is not quite sure what surplus visa can he look into. He actually owns IP and patents for health tech, telemedical product. So is there any special surplus visa that he can apply if he owns some patents and IP rights which means he actually invented or come up with this product? Is there an option that he can look into?
Okay. In general, for business owner, the subclass of 188 and 132 is the main subclass. So and there are subclass like 188A, B, C. All right. So similarly with 132, with Philip have shared, there is also a subclass 132A and B. So there is one pathway for what we call it entrepreneurial. So that could be one option for them to go in. If they qualify in terms of the turnover or the asset requirement, they can always go for the 132A straight away. Or if they do not meet the number, however, they basically have a entrepreneurial idea or an idea where they can seek funds from venture capital in Australia, there are options that you can go in through the 188 or the 132. So it'll be good that Mr. Miao can give us a contact or get our people to have a Zoom meeting with you one-to-one, and then we can discuss about the option there.
Okay, thank you, Dato. I hope that answered your...
Could I just quickly inject that? Certainly post-COVID here in Australia, telehealth, telemedicine is really a big opportunity, and we're starting to use telehealth and telemedicine. The federal government has also issued new what's called item numbers under the MBS Medicare to allow broader usage of telemedicine. And so I'd be interested to understand from the gentleman there, the questioner, about the technology, because that might be another opportunity for us to leverage some IP coming out of Malaysia in Australia. So I think it's a pretty interesting, exciting field, telemedicine, and I think we should be exploring all different aspects of that and what the cutting edge capabilities are.
Okay, Darren. So Mr. Moik, if you can leave us your contact, then our colleague and our Darren would like to talk to you to understand what you actually have. Then maybe you can explore an option that you can work together. The next one is actually, I hope Philip can assist. The question is this: since the border of Australia have been closed for foreigner, and one of the condition is that you need to actually visit South Australia to get the South Australia nomination. So if we were to submit the state nomination for the 132 visa now, would we actually get an invitation, or we have to wait until the border is open?
Well, so at the moment, the program has been closed since March the 24th, because each state in Australia has a quota, and South Australia reached its quota 3 months before the end of the financial year. Our program has grown more than about 2,400% bigger than it was 8 years ago. So it's a very, very popular program. So given the fact that we do have that requirement to visit South Australia, and clients actually can't come and visit, we'll be reopening from July the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, somewhere around that date. And we'll announce to the marketplace how that requirement will, whether or not it will or won't be there anymore, and if it is there, how it might be a little bit different than it was.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Dato, this is a very interesting question here. If I were to fail the 132 requirement, if I do not meet the requirement by end of the 2nd year where I'm due for review, is it my visa going to be cancelled, or there's another option that I have, an alternative?
Okay, for the review requirement, so which means once you obtain the visa, and from your initial entry date into Australia, the 2 years clock will run, right? So you will have to actually meet the requirement for the state requirement, which is the nomination requirement by the state. And on top of that, you also will have to meet the requirement from the federal. So we do have clients that is going in this visa, and halfway through they say, oh, is there extension? And currently with the COVID, some will come back and says, would there be some exemption on COVID? At this junction, I would say there's no extension. You have to fulfill the requirement within the 24 months. That's why we have 2 permanent staff based in Adelaide office, and we are assisting all our 132 clients, and we will be here to support you throughout the whole 2 years to be able for you to find the right business and to start the business. Obviously, as what Phillip has said, the state government will not endorse any particular business. Similarly, in Kitson, we try to be as neutral as possible, but we get the right partners. We have good experience. Like today, we are glad to have home nursing Darren to be here. We have some clients who have went through the business opportunity investment and the joint venture with them together in Western Australia, and they have passed the review.
Okay, thanks, Dato. Phillip, the next gentleman here would like to know if he were to choose like export business for the 132 visa, halfway through, he find out that he was not able to fulfill the export requirement. Can he switch to other businesses to fulfill another requirement, or he must stay on to one program until the end?
So once you've chosen your business and you begin that business, you're going to start running out of time. Like if a client, for example, started exporting and then a year later they wanted to do property development, well, there simply wouldn't be enough time for them to do so. And generally, if they're exporting is the lowest out of all of the requirements. So if there's issues with exporting, then which other requirement might they choose? So what we would say is we've never seen an issue with clients being able to meet the export requirement, but certainly we're always happy to discuss to understand the situation. But generally speaking, at the end of the 2 years, they need to have achieved one of the state requirements that I discussed during my presentation. If they do, we'll be very supportive of them at the 132 review stage. If they're not, then we would not be able to be supportive.
Understand, Phillip. So, Ms. Q, I hope it clear your question. So, if you have any question about fulfilling your business requirement, you have problem, you can always have a meeting with the state government and see what other option you have. But usually, do not advise because you only have 2 years to fulfill the requirement. So, if you are halfway through, sorry, Phillip.
And the 2 years goes very, very quickly. From when you come to activate the visa to when you have your first meeting, the second meeting, the time goes very quickly. And you're still managing your business overseas. So, I mean, really with exporting, if you know what you want to export, generally there won't be any issues. If he's already started business and there are issues, then maybe through Michael, if he could contact me, then we're happy to discuss it and let's see what we're dealing with.
Thanks for the update, Phillip. So, Ms. Q, so I hope we clear your question. So, you have any question, you can always contact us. Then we will see how we can help you on that one. Next one will be Darren. Okay, in your earlier presentation or discussion with from Dr. Michael that the initial investment can go as low as $500,000 Aussie dollar for the home nursing program. So if the client were to, the investor would be comfortable, this $500,000, is it only subject to one zone or can he have multiple regional per se?
Well, at the moment, we were only looking at one in regional SA and then one in metropolitan Adelaide. So there's 2 investment opportunities for South Australia.
So in other words, currently for the home nursing services in South Australia, you only have, at this present moment, only have 2 quota for 2 investors per se.
At this point, yes. Yes.
Thank you. So those who are interested, I hope that you grab this opportunity and act fast on the, as Darren mentioned, we only limited to 2 quotas only. And the next question is directed to, I think Dato will best suit to answer this one. My business turnover is slightly short of 3 million AUD. Is it possible for me to combine my other businesses in order to fulfill the requirement of the 3 million AUD?
Yeah, that is in fact a good question to ask because we do have a client who are short, you know. So in terms of the criteria for the turnover, you can combine up to 2 businesses together. So the other thing is also in terms of your financial year end closing date, we will actually use that particular date of conversion, the Aussie dollar to RM, sorry. Yeah. So sometime we'll be going through your financial statement because Malaysia will have different month of closing date. So if that particular month is favorable to you where the Aussie dollar is lower, so that will be able to help you to actually convert the ringgit to RM to a higher rate. So in short, you can combine up to 2 businesses together.
To follow up on this, what you just have answered, Dato', so When you say in short, you can combine two businesses. So both of the businesses also have to fulfill the ownership requirement?
Oh, yes, yes. The minimum requirement for a private limited company, your turnover more than 400,000 per year, we're talking Aussie dollar, must be at least 30%. All right. If your business is below 400,000 turnover, it must be 51%.
Thanks for the info update. I'm afraid that's just the time that we have for today. For those who are unable to attend to your question, do not worry. Our colleague will contact you personally to clear out all your queries. Do stay with us and like our page. We will have this session every Saturday, 2 p.m. We will cover on different discussion. Next week, we actually have a much relaxing discussion. We do not talk about migration. We do not talk about businesses. We just talk about how good lifestyle in Australia. In fact, we have a winemaker here to share with us how to appreciate New World wine from South Australia.
Wow, wow, that'd be good.
Thank you very much, everybody. We see each other again. Have a nice weekend ahead and happy Father Days for those in Malaysia, not in Australia. Australia Father Days is in September. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Philip. Bye, Darren.
Right,
Bye.
Bye, Jamie. Bye, Kay.
Bye. Bye.